why every single one of you needs to go broke at least once in their lives before attempting to become really successful. I've been broke 2 times in my life. The first time I was broke was before I even attempted to make money. That was before the age, let's say, of 21. Actually, I attempted to make money when I was maybe 18, 19. And then after 21, I had made over 400K. And then I wasn't a broke anymore. But guys, I remember my brokey days. I remember when I would go on a date. I was maybe 18. And usually I always went on dates with older girls. When I say older, I mean I was 18, she was 20, or she was 21. And I would go on a date. And back then, I used to be almost like an influencer because me and my friends, we would go out, put on outfits, which is, by the way, why I have a great sense of style. And people would then say, wow, they look so good. And then we started taking photos. And we used to put these photos on Instagram and we used to get a bunch of likes, started getting a bunch of followers. So then companies would send us coupons, they would send us gifts, they would send us a whole bunch of shit. And I took advantage, obviously, because then I would go on a date and the date would essentially be free. Because all I had to do was take a photo of the food, of the drink, of the location. And I could tell the waiter, look, I'm working with this company. They're going to give it to me for free. And I didn't have to pay. Now, the funny thing is this. I did that on a date one time. It always worked. And I do this one time. And the waiter literally comes up to me, that fucking bitch. And he's like, wait a minute. This only works for you. This doesn't work for 2 people. This only works for you. But I'd only brought like maybe 10 euros. And the whole thing was like 30. So then I was already telling the girl, don't worry, it's free. I got this, blah, blah, blah. The waiter comes in and says, yo, you can't use the coupon for the chick. Then I'm now telling the chick, okay, you have to pay because I don't have the money. She starts ranting how all guys are brokies and how guys nowadays go 50-50 and how it's embarrassing. And I'm just sitting there listening to her saying this. And I remember how I felt. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what the hell is going on? Right? All because I didn't have 20 euros more. Isn't that hilarious? Isn't that funny? That's how broke I used to be. Now, I'll accidentally lose 500 euros for some bullshit. I'll lose, let's say, $1,000 in the crypto trade, and I don't even feel it. I don't even care. But the reason I'm saying this is because everyone needs that contrast in their lives. Because what that does to your mind is it enables urgency. And when you have urgency, you just feel the need to make more money, guys. This is extremely important. One of the main reasons I am successful in what I do and other people that are the same intelligence level as I am, because I surround myself with people that are smart. But I'll see sometimes that this person's smart, but why am I 10 times richer than this person? It's just because I have more urgency. I wake up and the first thing I do is, where is the money? That's the first thing I think about. I whip up my phone. I start texting everyone in my group chats. I start checking my trades. I start becoming nervous and I start obsessing about making more and more money. It's because I used to be broke before and I don't want that to happen again. Now, the second reason why you should be broke before you start making lots of money. And guys, when I say broke, I mean that you urgently need money for a period of time and you just simply don't have it. That is what I mean with being broke. I don't mean you have a job and you're semi comfortable, you're making $2,000 a month. No, I mean that you have nothing. You're at rock bottom. That's what I mean with broke. If you go broke, or if you lose a shit ton of money, and that's why you become broke, is that you can now analyze what went wrong. Guys, analysis is one of the key parts of being successful. You need to have the ability to learn from your mistakes. But the crazy thing about it is, in order to do that, you need to have mistakes you can analyze from, which usually happens when you make the mistakes. But this can also be very powerful. Sometimes, guys, I will lose on purpose so I can win. I will do things wrong on purpose. Essentially, I call it experimenting. I'll just experiment, knowing that what I'm doing is probably wrong, so that I can then analyze and determine, okay, this shit doesn't work. Okay, this shit doesn't work. Okay, this shit doesn't work. So I can find the things that could actually work. So there is this concept of being able to bounce back harder, which every successful guy has. Every successful guy I know has had some critical failure in their life or in the business from which they bounce back. In hindsight, they needed that critical failure because without the critical failure, they wouldn't have been able to bounce back. You got to think about it like this. You have a basketball, let's say, and you throw it super hard on the floor, and then it jumps up harder than the level you threw it to the floor from. Does it make sense? So the floor acts as a bounce. That hit on the floor is critical for it to bounce. If you didn't have the floor, you would just go into the ether. You would just vanish into nothing. So you need the floor. You need that bounce. You need that rock bottom hit. Boom, so they can bounce back up. It's critical. So that is extremely important, guys. You need the ability to orchestrate a comeback. If you can't create a comeback, you're essentially just a loser, bro. You're a nobody because you get hit in the face by life and you can't hit back. Every single thing that I teach you guys, there's some time, some day in my life where I did the mistake and I fucked up. When it comes to females, when it comes to making money, when it comes to sports, I'm talking from experience. And that experience just makes you more resilient over time. It's almost like a flywheel. You make a mistake, you get better. You make a mistake, you get better. You make a mistake, you get better. And it just keeps going up and up and up. It's going to teach you essentially to learn from your mistakes. Going broke teaches you is the appreciation of money. And this is where I'm going to talk about the second time I was a broke in my life. So like I said, before I even attempted to make money, I was a broke. But then there was a period of time when I did make a shit ton of money. I was at the top of the world. I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then it all vanished within a day. When I was doing my business, I was working for two powerful people. And when I was working for these two very powerful people, they had some issues and went to jail. And when they went to jail, whoever their ops were, and I got thrown into the same bucket by their enemies. And by the click of a button, my business was vanished. So I give an example of what I mean. Let's say you were recording a podcast with two people. And then these two people get banned on YouTube. But because you record a podcast with them too, you get banned as well. Your entire YouTube channel gets banned by association. That is essentially what happened to me in my business back then. Like I said, I can't go too much into details. And I lost my around six-figure revenue overnight, and it went to zero. And I had to rebuild completely from scratch. Why was that good in hindsight? Because it taught me how to appreciate money. Back then, I was spending like a fucking retard. I would just open up my phone. I'd be like, oh shit, I just spent $80,000 this month. But why? I didn't even know what I spent. I would just spend it on bullshit. Sometimes I would accidentally book a flight and I'd be like, fuck, I don't actually need the flight. But then I can't cancel a flight. So I just lost $2,000 here. I would book business, obviously. Then I would just book the other flight. Fuck it. Does it even make sense? That's fucking insane. I remember this one time I was in Mexico. I bought a phone off Amazon, an iPhone. Bought it for my girlfriend back then. It arrives, and literally it wasn't a phone. When I opened the phone package, there was soap inside. I got tricked. Probably the cartel, the narcos, they just famous. They have all these connections, etc. And they stole the iPhone. That's most likely what happened. But me, in my infinite abundance, in my infinite greed and gluttony, I was like, nah, should I return this? It's just too much work. I'm rich. I'm not going to return it. I know it cost me $1,000, but it's going to be a hassle, send it back, talk to Amazon. Fuck it, let me just order another phone. That was me back then. I would never do that again. Even if I had $1 million and this happened to you, I would just not do that again. You learn how to appreciate money. And the reason why it's good to appreciate money is because I do believe in the very beginning, let's say you make $10,000 a month. You should have a budget of how much you spend. Yes, I said it. You should have a budget. Do not spend more than 20% of your income, because that way you're mathematically sure that you will not go broke. It would be impossible for you to go broke at that point. If you make $1,000, only spend $200. I don't care if you have to live with your parents. I don't care if you have to go back home. If you make $100,000, yeah, sure, spend $20K a month. Boom, fuck it. But if you're making $100,000 a month and you're spending 80, that's dumb as fuck. Do you understand? And that's one very good quote that I heard, which was spend 50% of your money. Let's say, for example, spend 50% of your money like there's no tomorrow, and then spend 50% of your money like you're going to live for another 100 years. So at some point, you just have to have some type of budget where you don't spend all of your money. Now, in my case, I just don't like to spend more than 20%. And that has worked extremely well for me. That way, I'm mathematically sure I cannot go poor over time. How can I get poor over time if I'm always having more and more money in the bank over time? And then the last reason why I believe it's important to go broke is because it gives you a comeback story. Guys, when this happened, I know I'm keeping very vague, and maybe at some point I'll reveal the story a little bit more. I mean, you guys know in which business I am. I have a model agency. I manage their OnlyFans accounts, and I manage the background operations, etc. And as I've said, what happened back then, I had my whole model agency, which was then completely and totally banned by OnlyFans because I was working with two guys that went to jail, and OnlyFans banned all of their models essentially and threw me in the same bucket because they were tracking IP addresses, they were tracking who was managing which models, and because I was managing these two guys' models, and they had an issue, and OnlyFans didn't want anything to do with it, they just banned me also and banned all my models, and I went to zero. Literally. That is what happened to me overnight. But it almost gave me a comeback story. You know what's funny? Before that happened, I was always thinking to myself, I would like a comeback story. You know, all these guys are like, I was so broke and then I was rich again, right? I wanted that too. And it happened to me. And it was one of the most stressful things ever that happened. But you know what that taught me? It taught me that I'm invincible. Yes, I do believe that I'm invincible. I will never go broke because I'll always find a way. I'll always find a way. I'm going to learn a new skill. I'm going to learn something brand new that I can apply in the business world. I'm going to attack from this direction. I'm going to attack from that direction. I'm not going to have the ability to fatigue. I'm going to keep going until I'm not a broke anymore. That's what it taught me. And I think everyone needs that. And the comeback story will give you that confidence that no matter what happens, you will be able to bounce back. And I think that goes a long way, guys. If you have that, you will know that you're the motherfucker. Does it make sense? You know in the back of my mind that it doesn't matter what happens. You'll always come out on top. And those are the reasons why I think it's good to go broke, honestly. But try to do it early. Try to go broke in your early 20s. Fasten it, make it quick, boom, go broke. Okay, boom, you bounce back. Now you're good again. And then you got to be good for a very long time.